I never expected a waiter to save my life with a split-second decision. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was sitting in that crowded café, the smell of burnt coffee swirling around me. My heart raced, pounding like a drum as the weight of my world pressed down. The walls felt like they were closing in. Every laughter, every clink of glass felt like a taunt. There, in the corner, with my hands trembling and tears threatening to spill, I could hear snippets of conversations. Friends celebrating, lovers whispering sweet nothings. But for me, silence hung thick, a suffocating cloud of loneliness. I thought about my brother. 5 days since his accident, 5 days since my life turned to ash. I just wanted to cry, but my chest was too tight. The pain was raw, deep, like a wound that wouldn't heal. That I glanced up, my gaze landing on him. The waiter. A nondescript guy in a stained white shirt and black pants, moving swiftly among the tables like a shadow. He had wild curls framing his face and the kind of eyes that seemed to see straight through the chaos around him. There was something odd about his presence, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Perhaps it was the way he held himself, as if he belonged somewhere far beyond the cosmos. Then, everything shifted, a loud crash echoed through the café. A man jumped to his feet, his table overturned, spitting fury like fire. He roared, his face red with rage, and every eye turned. My heart raced faster. "Get away from me!" the man shouted, and in that moment, I swear the air turned electric. The waiter appeared, moving forward with an unsettling calm. He approached the irate man, and there was something strange about the way he held his hands. Time seemed to slow. I could feel my breath hitching in my throat. I couldn't tear my gaze away from them. Would he diffuse the tension? Or would it explode into chaos right before us? My mind spun. Why did he choose to step in? Was he brave, or foolish? I wished desperately to ask him why he cared. Did he know what lay beneath the surface of our everyday lives? I could feel the collective anticipation of the room, people leaning in, breaths caught, hearts racing in harmony. And me? I was just a bystander, drowning in my own misery while the universe around me tangled with drama. Suddenly, the waiter began to speak. His voice was steady, like a calm lighthouse amidst a storm. "Listen," he said, words steady and profound. "We can solve this, together." Those words, so simple, became quiet magic floating in the air. I could hardly breathe, but before I could process the situation, the irate man raised his hand, quick and jerky. My heart dropped. I leaned forward, breath hitching, desperately wanting to scream for him to stop. Time halted as I held my breath. I could see the flicker of a decision in the waiter's eyes. What would he do? Was he about to step out of the realm of ordinary and into something extraordinary? And then it happened, a blinding flash of movement. A decision made in an instant. I couldn't look away. My heart pounded so loudly, I questioned if anyone else could hear it. Everything hung on that moment. What would come next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cafe fell into a breathless hush, frozen in the moment as I watched the scene unfold. The irate man's hand shot toward the waiter with a speed that sent shockwaves through my body. I squeezed my eyes shut, fearing the inevitable. But when I opened them again, the waiter stood calmly in front of the man, arms slightly raised like a guardian against a tempest. "Let us talk," he said softly, his voice like a balm over the crowd's anxiety. It was a simple invitation, but it resonated with an uncanny power that quieted the storm brewing within both the cafe and me. The angry man faltered, his breath hitching, anger tinged with confusion. That I leaned forward, caught in the magnetic pull of the moment. The watchful eyes of café patrons seemed to collectively hold their breath, waiting, hoping for a resolution that felt faint and distant. For a heartbeat, the world outside that café ceased to exist. It was just me, surrounded by a cloud of sorrow, and this strange waiter who emanated a warmth that contrasted sharply with my icy despair. As the chaos began to dissipate, I noticed an elderly woman at a table across from me. She clutched her teacup like a lifeline, her knotted hands betraying the tremor of her own worries. I felt an unexpected pang of kinship with her. Like me, she was trapped in the wall of silence surrounding grief. I realized, in a way, we were all here because we were escaping something, desperately clinging to a few moments of normalcy. When I turned my gaze back to the waiter, he was doing something remarkable. He was listening. He didn't just stand there, waiting for the ire to subside. He gently nodded as the angry man vented his frustrations. Gradually, the venom seemed to leave the man's words, replaced by vulnerability. It was a revelation that left me awash in emotions. I didn't just want to witness kindness, I craved it. I ached for connection, for someone to put a hand out and stand there with me in this unbearable silence. Moments passed and the scene began to dissolve. The waiter's calm demeanor seemed to unravel the rage, threads pulling tight around shared humanity instead. The man's shoulders slumped, a flicker of doubt passing over his features. My own heart softened, as if the weight on my chest had been lifted just a fraction. Yet in that fragile space, a different wave of sorrow crashed over me, accompanied by the memory of my brother's laugh, bright and shattering. I could almost hear it echoing through the buzzing din of the café, but then it vanished, leaving only hollow silence. My throat tightened as tears stung my eyes, ready to spill over. I wanted to scream out, to be heard in this sea of laughter and life swirling around me, and just when I thought I could find solace in this unexpected resolution, it happened. A ringing phone shattered the restored tranquility. It echoed through the café like a siren call. My heart plummeted. I recognized that ringtone. It was my mother's. Fear gripped me as I pulled out my phone. The caller ID read Mom. My mind raced back to the last time we spoke, a chaotic conversation peppered with grief and unbearable pain. Her frail voice had quivered through the line, overshadowed by the reality of my brother's absence. Please answer, a small voice whispered inside my head. You might want to hear her voice. Swallowing my panic, I pressed the green button, my heart drumming violently against my ribs. The connection beeped, and I could hear her breathing. Hello? I managed to whisper, the word barely escaping my lips, but instead of my mother's familiar tone, a deep hitch of breath reverberated through the line. Honey, are you all right? That wasn't Mom. Panic flared inside me, erupting like a sudden fire. In the depths of my heart, I felt something shift, a pulse of dread rising like bile. Who is this? I demanded, the tremor in my voice unfurling like a warning. Even as I awaited an answer, the waiter caught my eye. He seemed to sense the shift in the atmosphere, his thoughtful eyes narrowing with concern. This stranger, who had somehow reached into my darkness, now reflected my own fear. I had looked to him for hope, and yet I felt a chasm separating us, opening wide and threatening to swallow all that seemed tethered. I'm so sorry, the voice on the line stuttered. This is Officer Richter. I need you to listen. I froze, the world around me blurring as the weight of his words crashed down. The café disappeared, an abyss of uncertainty opening wide. Something has happened. The café buzzed with ambient murmurs and tantalizing aromas that I had long since ceased to notice. Those walls had become a fortress of fleeting moments, meant to cradle wandering souls like mine, but now I felt trapped inside them. Officer Richter's words echoed through my consciousness, the gravity of that phrase hovering over me like a storm cloud. Something has happened. My fingers tightened around the phone, knuckles pale under the pressure. What do you mean? I managed to croak, though the voice in my head screamed for the other shoe to drop. I glanced around the café, searching for a tether to the world that, just moments ago, felt comforting. But now, it seemed like a house of cards destined to collapse. "I'm sorry to inform you that it's about your brother," Officer Richter continued, each word punctuated with a sincerity that felt like a gut punch. My heart splintered, shards of dread digging deeper into my chest. The elderly woman at the table glanced over, concern etched in her features, and the waiter shifted closer, ever the steady presence. I wanted to scream, to shatter the silence that twisted around us like a suffocating coil. The vibrant café that had offered warmth and brief respite was now a watchtower, filled with strangers bound by their own unspoken fears. "Breathe," I told myself. "What happened?" The question slipped out with a fierceness laced in desperation. I felt exposed, as though every tear I'd fought back, every moment of concealed sorrow, was spilling out in that one utterance. "Please sit down. I can't discuss this over the phone," he said gently, as if my legs would collapse from beneath me at any moment, anticipation heavy in the air. I dared a hesitant glance at the waiter, and in that instant, an unspoken agreement passed between us. He didn't rush to grab my arm and propel me away. Instead, he stood there, ready to offer his support. It was all I needed. I followed his beckoning gaze toward an empty seat in the corner. As I settled into the chair, my breath came in shallow waves. The officer's voice continued, but the noise outside faded, as if all life had dissipated except for the invisible thread that bound me to the kernel of anguish that awaited me. "Your brother was in an accident," Richter said, the words heavy with an almost sickening softness. The air thinned, and for a moment, I felt as though I could float away. "He didn't survive." The sentence detonated in my mind, scattering fragments of thoughts and emotions I hadn't yet processed. Denial crept against the edges of my heart. Another layer of grief, a burden I had never planned for but now had no choice but to shoulder. As the news sunk in, sobs began to unfurl within the hollow of my chest, trembling like wind against glass. My surroundings blurred into insignificance, the conversations, the laughter, the soothing barista rituals dissolving into a muted haze. Still, the waiter approached with quiet intent. He leaned closer and whispered, "I'm here for you." His words were like a rock thrown into a still pond, sending ripples that nudged at my frozen grief. Still, my world was dimming, swirling shadows eclipsing everything. "Why?" I whispered, anguish spilling over my lips. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I tried to reach you," Richter replied softly, an unfamiliar pang of empathy threaded in his tone. My heart battled with resentment, yet it felt oddly comforting. Someone understood my pain, even if it was twisted by circumstance. Then, one thought crept in, intermingling with the chaos: the memory of my brother's smile, the warmth in his voice, the dreams we crafted under starlit skies. I grasped for those fragments, but they danced further from my reach. And just as despair threatened to consume me whole, an unexpected sound pierced through the fog. A rush of laughter erupted from the other side of the café. I turned, instinctively. A group of children, faces smeared with chocolate, buzzed with innocent glee. Their joy cut through my grief, yet it felt like a dagger, reminding me what I had irretrievably lost. Tears spilled down my cheeks, and the waiter reached across the table and placed his hand on mine. "Let it out. You're not alone." His touch ignited something deep within me, a flicker of defiance against sorrow's tightening grip. The warmth of his hand against mine momentarily tethered me, igniting the tiniest possibility of enduring hope. But before I could respond, an alarm blared from outside, jolting me back to reality. The color drained from the waiter's face, his gaze sweeping across the café. Then he turned to me, his eyes wide with urgency. "We need to go now." My pulse raced as apprehension spilled over within the span of a heartbeat. "What? Why?" "There's a situation. I can explain later, but it's not safe here," he said, urgency lacing his voice like steel. Another wave of anxiety washed over me, conflicting with the reality of my heartbreak. I felt pulled from the depths of despair into the unknown, thrust deeper into a world that seemed anything but safe. As I stood to follow him, I turned back one last time to face the café, now a blurred tapestry of uncertainty, laughter, and grief. With every person inside, every shared moment that had once felt immutable, a new dread seeped in. What lay ahead? What more could be taken from me? And then I realized, as I moved toward the door behind the waiter, my heart racing against a tide of unfathomable fear, that this was only the beginning. Whatever was waiting beyond those doors, I knew I would face it alone, yet surrounded. My brother's memory forever etched against the shadows, but also the possibility of kindness, however small, shimmering in the distance. The streets outside the café felt foreign, drenched in an unsettling twilight that mirrored the chaos in my heart. The outside world no longer bore the familiar hum of life, it was a realm where shadows danced like phantoms. I followed closely behind the waiter, my heart in my throat, as he led me away from the entrance and into a narrow alley, where the sounds of life dampened to muffled echoes. "Stay close to me," he instructed, casting a protective glance over his shoulder. The urgency in his voice wrapped around me, though I felt the tendrils of panic still clinging to my consciousness. "What's happening?" I demanded, unable to temper the tremor in my voice. "A conflict nearby. I can't explain all of it just yet, but trust me," he replied, and there was a sincerity in his tone that compelled me to follow. "I promise I'll keep you safe." The weight of his words resonated, a lifeline amidst the swirling tumult of my emotions. But then, piercing through that flicker of hope, a raw wave of doubt washed over me. "What do you know about safety? My brother just died." I don't even know if my voice cracked, the reservoir of grief spilling over as raw anguish clawed at my insides. That he paused, throwing me an understanding glance. I know this is hard. But we can't stay out here. Please just let me guide you." As he spoke, I found myself desperately searching his face, clinging to the possibility that he meant what he said. There was kindness etched into his features and perhaps something more. In that moment, he became an anchor, the first semblance of support I'd found since the earth had shattered beneath my feet. That we navigated through the labyrinth of alleys, my breath ragged as we turned corner after corner. Suddenly, the air crackled with tension. I caught sight of figures clad in dark clothing, moving with purpose not far from where we stood. My body tensed instinctively, but the waiter's hand found mine again, grounding me. "Just breathe," he murmured, squeezing my hand lightly as if he could transfer courage through that brief touch. I felt a rush of warmth, even among the chaos that surrounded us. The distant sound of sirens shrieked through the air, jolting me back to the reality of my loss. A wave of sorrow flooded my chest, but it battled against the urgency of our escape. "This is insane," I whispered, barely believing the surreal tapestry we were woven into. "We'll be okay. I promise," he assured, his voice calm but firm, like the steady beat of a metronome. But my brain refused to rest. "What happens when we're safe? I can't keep running like this." Every word felt like a surrender, engraved with my innermost fear of an uncertain future, of a life irrevocably changed. "It's not just safe, it's about figuring out what comes next," he replied, his gaze fierce yet tender. "You'll want to face this. I see it in your eyes." The conviction in his statement sparked something deep within me, a determination overshadowed by my grief. We reached a weathered door at the end of another alley. The waiter hesitated for a brief second, his fingers wrapping around the knob. "Are you ready?" I felt the weight of my brother's memory pressing against my chest and looked into the mysterious void contained within that door. "I'll follow you," I murmured, not knowing if my voice would carry through the uncertainty that loomed ahead. With one decisive turn of the knob, he pushed the door open, and the scent of damp earth and warm light flooded out. I stepped forward, hesitating only for a moment as I crossed the threshold, feeling as if I was both leaving behind the remnants of my old life and stepping into an invisible world of possibilities. Inside, an unexpected warmth enveloped me. It was a room filled with shelves of books, dimly lit by an array of flickering candles, an underground sanctuary carved out of chaos. In the midst of the overwhelming dread, a sense of peace fluttered around me, tentative but present, and yet, before I could exhale, my gaze landed on a figure in the corner, another man, watching us intently, a knowing smile dancing on his lips. At that instant, a chill raced down my spine. There was something unsettling about his familiarity. "Welcome," he said, his tone smooth but laced with a hidden weight. "I've been waiting for you both." An acute twist of apprehension coursed through me, and I grasped the waiter's hand, my pulse pounding harshly in my ears. "Who are you?" My voice trembled, torn between defiance and dread. "We have much to discuss," the man said, eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and sincerity. "Especially about your brother." In that heartbeat, the space shifted, the fragile solace that had begun to form cracking beneath the weight of an unexpected revelation. As the shadows spread across the room, I was left suspended, caught between the delicate promises of hope and the dark uncertainty of truths I might not be ready to face. The light from the candles cast a warm glow, yet it felt distant, as if it illuminated a world I no longer belonged to. I stood there, heart racing, the weight of my brother's absence a relentless ache in my chest. The waiter's hand grew tense in mine, grounding me but also reminding me of the uncertainty that danced between us. "Please, just tell me what you know," I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper, each word tinged with a desperate urgency. The man in the corner leaned forward, his eyes glimmering with an unsettling curiosity. "I know how he died, Miranda. It was no accident." Each word edged deeper into my psyche, igniting tangled feelings of anguish, betrayal, and anger. The waiter's grip on my hand tightened, a silent signal that the time for flight had come again. "Let us not do this here. We need to move," he urged, his brow furrowed in concern, but the pull of the man's revelation held me rooted to the spot. "What do you mean it was no accident?" I pressed, fighting against the pit of dread coiling in my stomach. "They were targeting him," the man replied, the corners of his mouth curving into a smirk that felt more predatory than welcoming. "He stumbled upon something he shouldn't have. Your brother, he was involved in something bigger than either of you realized." A surge of anger and grief pulsed through me, muddying the waters of my already turbulent emotions. "Stop!" I shouted, letting go of the waiter's hand, the room spinning with confusion and betrayal. "You don't know what you're talking about." The walls of the dim sanctuary meant to provide safety felt suffocating, each flickering shadow morphing into tangible ghosts of my past. The man's smile faltered only for a moment before returning with an unsettling calm. "Oh, but I do, Miranda. It's why I've been waiting for you." "Enough!" the waiter yelled, stepping between us, a fierce protector blocking my view of the man. "This isn't the time or the place. We're not safe here. We need to go." "But what about?" I began, my voice wavering as I struggled to comprehend the chaos unfolding around me. "Listen to him," the man interrupted, his voice smooth as silk, yet laced with a threat. "The longer you stay, the more danger you invite into your life. You don't want to end up like your brother, now do you?" My breath hitched as confusion mixed with fear consumed me. The implications lingered heavily in the air, but I found my resolve weakening under the weight of his words. I looked at the waiter, silently pleading for his understanding. "I'm not letting you go without answers," I whispered, trembling yet defiantly rooted in place. "I will explain everything," the man said, leaning back into the shadows, "but only if you're willing to protect what's left of your family's legacy." With the word legacy, a wave of dread washed over me. My brother had been everything: a beacon of hope, a guardian of my dreams. Could I really dismantle his life and uncover the truth without losing myself in the process? The waiter's gaze flickered between the two of us. "Trust me, Miranda. You'll need a better plan than this. Come on," he urged again, threading his arm through mine and gently nudging me toward the door. As I took a step away from the man, I felt the weight of his words clinging to me, wrapping around my throat like a noose. I glanced back one last time, the man's eyes piercing through the dim light, a glint of satisfaction evident in his gaze. It felt as if he saw every crack in my armor, every vulnerability. We moved into the alleyway, the muffled chaos of the outside world crashing down around us. The waiter led me swiftly, his grip like steel. "Stay close," he muttered, quickening his pace. "We have to get as far away from here as we can." In the midst of all the uncertainty, a flicker of concern ignited within me. What will we do now? I can't go back home. It's not safe. "We'll figure it out," he replied, his tone steady. "But we have to keep moving. We need to get to the others." The others? My head spun with questions that floated into the void, unanswered. Who were these others? Why was I a part of something that felt larger than just my world of grief? Just as I opened my mouth to question him, a piercing scream echoed through the alleys, fracturing the fragile cocoon of safety we had wrapped ourselves in. I froze in place, fear rushing in like a cold wave. The waiter's grip tightened, pulling me into motion as shadows seemed to stretch and pursue us along the cobblestones. "Run! Now!" he shouted, the urgency in his voice igniting a primal instinct within me. We dashed through the maze of alleys, heart pounding in rhythm with the pounding of my footsteps. The scream echoed again, and it was followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy boots pounding the ground behind us. Whatever had taken my brother was now hunting me, and with every step, I felt the threads of my world unraveling further. Just as we turned another corner, we skidded to a halt. In front of us stood an eerie figure shrouded in black, eyes glistening with a strange familiarity, as if this moment had been scripted long before my brother ever took his last breath. "Having fun?" the figure said, a smirk curling at the edges of his mouth. As dread washed over me, I realized that this was only the beginning of a much darker revelation, and I was woefully unprepared for the choices that lay ahead. The chill in the air intensified, wrapping around me like a tightening vice as I stood frozen, staring at the figure cloaked in shadows before us. Time seemed to collapse, each second stretching into infinity as I sought to decipher the enigma that loomed before me. The heaviness of the moment was palpable, the unknown weighed down on my chest, mocking my ignorance with every shallow breath I took. "Who are you?" I whispered, forcing the words out despite the tremor in my voice, desperate to break the suffocating silence. The figure chuckled softly, the sound dark and mocking. "Does it matter, Miranda? For all intents and purposes, I'm just a messenger. But as you can see, the message you're receiving is rather dire, wouldn't you agree?" With a swift motion, the waiter stepped forward, positioning himself between me and the stranger. "You need to leave her out of this, Dorian. She's not part of your game." Dorian. The name resonated with a strange familiarity, as if I had always known it, always felt the reverberations of a past I had yet to fully comprehend. "What game?" I asked, my voice rising in pitched terror. "What do you want from me?" Dorian leaned casually against the wall, the dim light casting ghostly shadows across his face. "What I want is irrelevant. What matters is what you're willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth about your brother. Are you ready for that? You think knowing how he died will bring you peace?" "I have to know," I insisted, the desperation clawing at my insides. "If there's something more, something he was involved in, I need to understand." "Understanding comes with a price," Dorian continued, tilting his head as if he were studying a curious specimen. "Are you prepared to pay it? This world isn't as simple as black and white, Miranda. The shadows dance with deception, and in chasing after answers, you may lose more than you can afford." The waiter's body tensed beside me, and I felt a surge of anxiety well up. "We don't have time for this," he said sharply, his gaze locked onto Dorian with a fierce intensity. "There are others who will come looking for her. We have to get out of here." Dorian waved a dismissive hand, but his eyes glinted with amusement and something deeper, an unsettling awareness that sent a shiver down my spine. "Oh, they'll come, all right. But it won't be for Miranda. It's you they want, my friend." My heart raced, twisting painfully as I tried to grasp the layers of tangled relationships unfurling around me. How had I found myself so deeply enmeshed in a web spun by forces I could scarcely begin to comprehend? Was I the innocent trapped in a plot writ large, Or had I unknowingly stepped onto a stage where my actions could bring about consequences I was too naive to foresee? What do you mean? I finally managed to ask, my voice breaking, terrified of the answers lurking just out of reach. Why would anyone want him? Because he knew too much, Dorian replied, his smirk faltering just slightly, revealing a flicker of respect for the bodyguard who stood before him. He uncovered something critical, a conspiracy that could burn the whole house down. A petty thief? He scoffed. No, your brother was anything but ordinary, Miranda. You should be proud. I can't think about pride right now, I stuttered, grappling with the surreal nature of it all. What do you want from me? As I searched Dorian's gaze, I caught a glimpse of something buried beneath his confident exterior, a mixture of desperation and ambition, a haunting reminder that in this world, alliances were often forged in blood and betrayal. The waiter moved closer, tension radiating from him. None of this matters if you want to keep living. We have to go, he said firmly, a protective urgency coloring his voice, but Dorian's demeanor shifted dramatically, the teasing edge sharpening into something more sinister. You'll regret this, Miranda. You're stepping away from a destiny crafted for you, and there will always be a price. Before I could respond, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed in the alleyway, a strong and deliberate march that promised danger. My heart raced again, and I could feel the heat of urgency wrap itself around me like a suffocating blanket. No! I gasped, spinning around in search of an escape. Where do we go? My eyes darted toward the narrow pathway behind us, a faint flicker of hope in my chest, but a deep-seated fear sent me reeling. Every instinct screamed for me to flee, yet a small voice whispered for me to confront the truth that lay hidden in the dark. But before I could make sense of anything, the shadowed figure Dorian stepped out of the way, a glint of glee flashing across his features at the arrival of our unseen pursuers. Time's up, he sang cheerily. Looks like it's game on. Good luck, Miranda. With one last infuriating smirk, he vanished into the darkness, leaving me with the tightening knot of panic in my gut, and a realization dawning with sickening clarity. In trying to seek the truth, I had unwittingly donned the cloak of danger that would forever change everything I held dear. The waiter's grip tightened around my arm, tearing me from the paralysis that had gripped me. This way. Now. His voice broke the spell, and without further hesitation, we turned and sprinted into the unknown. As I flew down the corridor of my new reality, one final thought pierced through the whirlwind of emotion and fear. Who in this twisted narrative was I truly fighting for? The answer lingered just beyond my grasp, teasing me with the possibility of a truth I might never be ready to face. The pounding of my heart merged with the chaotic rhythm of our footsteps as I sprinted deeper into the alley, the shadows closing in around us like a suffocating fog. The waiter, whose name I still didn't know, led with an urgency that pushed me beyond my limits. I could hardly keep pace, my mind racing with unanswered questions and the dread of the truth I was seeking. Where are we going? I gasped, my lungs burning. I glanced back, scanning the darkness for any sign of our pursuers, but the alley stretched endlessly like a long tunnel, swallowing the last vestiges of safety. Just keep moving. He shot back, his focus unwavering as he navigated the maze of brick and stone. I know a place nearby. A flash of unease gripped me. The further we moved, the more suffocating the fear became. My body screamed to stop, to breathe, but the weight of what lay behind us was a relentless force propelling me forward. And yet, even amid the adrenaline, I couldn't help but feel the weight of my brother's unresolved fate looming overhead. Who are you, really? I managed to ask between breaths, attempting to unravel the enigma that had tethered itself to my life in these last moments. You're not just a waiter. He hesitated for a brief second, almost as if deciding what to reveal before his gaze locked onto mine, earnest and fierce. Let's just say I don't want to see any more people lost to this world than necessary. Your brother was wrapped up in something massive, and now it's your turn to bear the burden. My heart sank. The idea that my quest for answers could drag me to a fate mirroring his was a chilling prospect. But I can't know. You can't think like that, he interrupted curtly. You've already stepped into this darkness, fighting back is the only way to keep from being consumed. He shifted our direction sharply, and as we rounded a corner, a dull glow pierced the enveloping blackness. What is that? I squinted, instinctively slowing down as apprehension settled in the pit of my stomach. A safe house, he responded flatly. For people like us. As we approached the door, my pulse quickened with both trepidation and hope. Would this refuge offer clarity or further entangle me in a web of shadows? I was teetering on the precipice of something unknown, and instinctively, I glanced back once more. There were no immediate signs of pursuit, but the weight of Dorian's words lingered ominously in the recesses of my mind that he stepped into the light, revealing a small, shabby building nestled between two towering structures. The facade was weary and faded, but in this moment, it embodied a beacon of hope. Stay close, he instructed, pulling me through the door into a dimly lit room filled with mismatched furniture and the smell of stale coffee. Inside, an older woman sat stitching a worn tapestry, her hands steady and skilled as she hummed a tune that danced in the air. When she heard us enter, her head snapped up, concern flaring in her hazel eyes. What is going on? Are you okay? We were followed, the waiter answered, not breaking eye contact with me. We need to stay here for a moment, at least until it's safe. The woman's brows knit together, and she quickly set her sewing aside. All right, sit down. I'll prepare some tea. You look like you need it. There was something maternal in her tone that momentarily soothed the raging storm inside me. Yet, I remained on edge, wrapped in uncertainty about the events that had spiraled my life into chaos. As we took a seat, I caught the woman's gaze lingering on me. You must be Miranda, she said softly, and my breath hitched. Your brother spoke of you often. I stopped short, the warmth of kindness clashing violently with the chilling revelation about my brother's hidden life. What do you mean? What did he say? My voice trembled, barely containing the wave of emotions flooding me. Before, she trailed off, her expression clouded with sorrow. He wanted to protect you, always. Tears threatened to spill as I found myself teetering on the precipice of grief and revelation, the truth I had sought appearing more distant than ever. Protect me from what? I pressed, desperate for answers. The waiter met my gaze, his expression serious. We have no time right now, he interjected, but I felt the knowledge hanging painfully between us. The woman seemed to sense my turmoil and rose to boil water in the kitchen. With each clanking sound, I was reminded again how fleeting moments of normalcy felt in this fractured reality. For a brief second, the atmosphere shifted, as if a fragile hope flickered in the air, but before I could collect my thoughts, a loud crash reverberated outside, splintering the moment of peace. I jumped to my feet, heart racing anew. What was that? Stay here. The waiter ordered, determination written on his face as he moved toward the door. No. I protested, instinctively grabbing his arm. I'm coming with you. I can't just hide while my voice faltered. Miranda, he started, but the panic in my eyes pushed him to reconsider. Before he could respond, the door flung open, and my heart plummeted as a shadow slid into the room, silhouette sharp against the faint light. I recoiled, instinctively stepping back as a figure stepped forward, a face I recognized from nightmares. Looks like the game just got a lot more interesting, Dorian said, his smile cutting through me like glass. Did you really think you could run from the truth? A thrilling chill ran through me as dread clawed at my throat. The journey for answers had just awakened a storm, and we were caught right in the eye of it, teetering on the edge of a revelation that could unravel everything I believed. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat sounding like a warning bell as I stood frozen, caught between the familiar and the terrifying. Dorian, the man who haunted my thoughts, now stood before me, his presence filling the room with a tension that suffocated. The waiter remained poised, a protective barrier between Dorian and me, his expression tense as he grasped the handle of a kitchen knife from the counter. Stay back, he commanded, his voice low and threatening, yet I sensed the tremor beneath it. Dorian chuckled softly, a low, resonant sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Oh, I'm not here to cause a scene. Not yet, at least. He fixed his gaze on me, and for a moment, his facade slipped, revealing a flicker of something. Was it regret? I just want to talk, Miranda. Talk? I scoffed, my voice edged with disbelief. You expect me to believe you have something worth saying? You've done nothing but lie and manipulate everyone around you. He raised his hands in a mock display of surrender as he took a step closer, unfazed by the waiter's presence. We both know it's more complicated than that. Dorian's eyes glinted with an unsettling mix of excitement and recognition. You're tangled in this web now. But I can help, if you let me. Help? You've done enough damage already, I spat, a surge of anger igniting my nerves. You don't get to pretend you care about me or my brother. You sold him out. Miranda, you had no idea what he was involved in, Dorian pleaded, though beneath his smooth demeanor lay the menace that made my instinct scream. They're coming for you too. But you're not prepared for what's coming. Not yet. I could feel the walls closing in, my thoughts wrestling with the chaos in my heart. The weight of unanswered questions hung like a heavy cloud. What do you mean? I pressed, my voice wavering slightly, betraying the hurt and confusion battling within me. As Dorian opened his mouth to respond, the older woman returned, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the steaming teapot. The fragility of her presence somehow brought a strange kind of normality to the chaos surfacing. Is everything all right? She asked, her voice soothing, even amid the tension. Just a family reunion, Dorian said, his remark heavy with irony. Aspirational, isn't it? The woman's eyes narrowed as she surveyed the situation unfolding, and I noticed her grip on the teapot tightened. You should leave, Dorian, she said, her voice edged with authority. She doesn't need more threats in her life. Dorian's smile faded into something less comfortable. You don't understand, do you? Miranda is entrenched in all of this now. You think keeping her away will protect her? It won't work. He focused on me, and I felt a strange pull, my curiosity mixing violently with fear. But I can be your guide through this maze. I know the secrets, the truths that will set you free. Free? Don't talk to me about freedom. You've only served to chain my brother to this hell. My voice broke, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. The agony of loss flooded me, clouding my mind with despair as I sought answers, only to be met with more enigmas. Miranda, the waiter interjected, his voice firm yet laced with an undercurrent of urgency. What you need is clarity, not more guilt. And Dorian is not the answer. But am I even seeking the right answers? I whispered, my voice trembling. Another realization crashed over me like waves. My fear wasn't just for my brother anymore, but for the truth itself and what it could cost me. Dorian stepped forward again, his expression shifting to one of intensity. Listen, I know I've caused pain, but we can't change what has happened. What you need to understand is that your brother was about to expose something powerful. Dangerous. And now, they're turning their sights on you. Stop pretending you care. I shouted, the frustration burning within me. You've played with our lives like they were nothing. The old woman's voice trembled as she stepped forward, a tremor of desperation lacing her words. Miranda, please listen to him. My head spun, each new revelation unraveling my thoughts. Why should I trust any of you? I cried, caught in a storm of betrayal and longing. Dorian tilted his head, disarmingly earnest. Because you don't have a choice. He nodded toward the door. They won't wait. They'll come for you whether you're ready or not. The realization crashed into me with an almost physical weight. My quest for answers could cost far more than I was prepared to lose. The safe haven I had thought I found was merely an illusion, and the truth lay just out of reach, lurking in the shadows. As the air thickened with apprehension, a sound echoed from the entrance, a clamoring of footsteps and muffled voices. Panic seized me, the ancient fight-or-flight instinct kicking in. I turned to the table, wide-eyed, desperation clawing at me. What do we do? Get ready, the waiter instructed, determination flooding his expression as we both edged back towards the kitchen, preparing for whatever might come next. In that moment, the door slammed wide open again, and the harsh light spilled into the room, illuminating the chaos with blinding clarity. As silhouettes rushed through, I felt a jolt of horror ripple through me as a familiar face emerged, stark against the brightness, a face I'd lost hope of ever seeing. Miranda! A voice called, cutting through the confusion with the clarity of a bell tolling in the night. It was Avery, fists balled with fury, eyes searching. I've been looking for you everywhere. My breath hitched in disbelief, heart pounding in my ears as hope flickered for a moment, stark against all that spun around me. But as her eyes landed on Dorian, that hope scattered like dust on the wind, leaving a chilling realization in its wake. What had I truly stepped into? The answers loomed closer than I'd ever realized, and yet with every answer came a new set of questions that swirled toward an ominous horizon, reminding me that freedom might just be a mirage surrounded by darkness. Avery stood at the threshold, a whirlwind of raw emotion and urgency. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she took in the scene before her, eyes brimming with disbelief and confusion. The room felt like it was closing in, the weight of her gaze made my heart race, reminding me that the storm raging within me was reflected in her own desperate expression. Miranda, what is going on? She demanded, her voice a blend of worry and anger. I could see her mind working through the chaos, piecing together the puzzle the moment she locked eyes with Dorian. The tension thickened, much like the air before a summer storm, as every silent heartbeat felt like an eternity. Stay back. Dorian growled, stepping between us, an unsettling mix of protectiveness and possessiveness in his stance. Why did you come here? I whispered to Avery, still reeling from the shock of her appearance. I found myself yearning for the bond we'd shared, it felt like an anchor in this turbulent sea of uncertainty. I had to find you before it was too late, she said, her voice trembling yet resolute, almost as if she were trying to break through a veil of fear that hung between us. They told me you were in danger. I thought he might have harmed you. Her eyes darted past Dorian, lingering on me, hurt coursed through me at the suggestion that I was incapable of finding my way out of this mess. I'm not a child, Avery. I snapped, frustration boiling over as I shook my head. You don't know what's happening here. Then tell me. She urged, a pleading note creeping into her voice. Tell me everything, because I know him. She pointed at Dorian, her eyes blazing with righteous anger. And if you're connected to him, it means you're in deeper than I thought. Enough. Dorian's voice cracked like thunder, signaling a shift in his demeanor. The confident mask slipped, revealing raw desperation beneath. You have no idea what you're getting into. None of you do. Maybe we don't, I shot back defiantly, rallying against him. But we're done letting you dictate our lives. I felt the heat of truth rising in me like a phoenix, and it emboldened me despite the uncertainty swirling in the air. With a sudden motion, Avery stepped closer, her resolve unwavering. Miranda, we can't let him control this narrative. She looked at me, her eyes softening. We have to find the truth together. We've always been stronger together. Dorian's eyes narrowed, absorbing our united front. My heart raced at the thought of standing up to him. For so long, I'd allowed fear to dictate my journey, but here with Avery beside me, I felt a flicker of hope, a fragile thread I couldn't let slip away. Miranda, Dorian started, his tone now tinged with a mix of frustration and something akin to despair. You really think you can just decipher this alone? There are forces you can't comprehend, then help us. My voice rang out, echoing against the walls, surprising even myself. If you're here to protect me, prove it. Tell us what's really going on. Dorian hesitated, the internal conflict evident on his face. But before he could respond, a chorus of raised voices echoed from the entrance, jolting us back to reality. My heart plummeted as I recognized the inflection. They weren't coming to help. "Miranda!" A booming voice called out, a panicked urgency matched by the sound of frantic footsteps advancing on us. The familiar figure of Marcus, one of Dorian's associates, burst into view, flanked by a couple of intimidating figures whose intent was clear. Their eyes were wild with desperation, driven by an insatiable necessity. "Get away from her!" he shouted, eyes narrowed on Dorian. "We have to leave now." A visceral chill crept down my spine as I grasped the implication of their arrival. Each step they took sent ripples of fear through me. They were here for us, and no amount of bravado could shield me from the storm on the horizon. Panic crested, and in that moment, clarity cut through the fog of confusion. Every instinct in me screamed to run, yet I felt rooted to the ground. Avery's hand shot out, finding mine in a grip that felt like salvation. I turned to Dorian, seeking his guidance, and found only his conflicted gaze. "Choose, Miranda," he hissed, his voice low but fierce. "Stay with me, and I'll show you what you need to see. Or run with them into the unknown. But know this: once you leave, there's no turning back." The world narrowed to a single point. The weight of my decision bore down like a crushing tide. The whirlwind of choices collapsed in on itself. I pulled Avery closer to me, my pulse racing with the persistent beat of fear. But then something stirred deep within, igniting the spark of hope I dared to nurture. "I want to let them take me," I said, my determination rising like a phoenix from the ashes. Could this be the way out? And just as I opened my mouth to shout a defiant rallying cry, I felt it, a fluttering presence amidst the storm. A soft glow from the corner ignited, illuminating the shadows and casting our fledgling bond in stark contrast to the perils surrounding us. But then Avery gasped as she looked beyond me, her eyes wide with terror, and the world sharpened to a startling clarity. I turned and gasped, my heart plummeting into an abyss, for behind Marcus stood a second figure I had never expected to see again, and the truth of their reappearance sent electric shockwaves coursing through my veins. "Why are you here?" I stammered, the betrayal taking root in my gut as the reality of their intentions sank in. "Because," the figure replied, a cold smile curling their lips, "we've come to finalize what's been left unfinished." I stand in the dim kitchen, heart hammering against my ribs, drowning in a sea of confusion and betrayal. The familiar face that has re-emerged from my past feels like a shadow that's haunted my every waking moment, and now, there it is, solid and taunting before me. "What do you want from me?" My voice quakes, fractured and vulnerable as I try to comprehend this new twist in my reality. "Isn't it obvious?" The figure responds, eyes glinting with a malevolence that sends chills racing down my spine. "The truth about your brother might bring you peace, but digging deeper will only uncover more chaos. That's where you come in." My breath hitches as their words echo in the confines of my mind, sending sharp tendrils of fear lacing through me. This isn't just about the past, this is about the unyielding present, clawing at me. Avery's grip around my hand tightens, a spark of solidarity igniting within me. "I won't face this alone, not again." A flick of desperation plays over her face, mirroring my own turmoil. Just behind our adversary stands Dorian, his expression a mix of regret and anger. For a heartbeat, I see something deeper in him, a recognition of shared struggle, like two weary souls lost in the same tempest. "I'm done being a pawn in your game," I spit, stepping forward with measured resolve. "You think you can play with my life and my brother's legacy without consequence?" The weight of my words feels oddly empowering, sending heat coursing through my veins. This moment, right here, is mine. Marcus, the familiar face now twisted by malice, chuckles softly. "It's adorable how you think you have control over anything. But you're in a world far beyond your understanding. And your loyalties? They'll betray you." A dark smirk curls his lips, and I can feel the coldness radiate off him. "I know then that he thrives in chaos, my brother's chaos." Como low 6, the whispers of urgency creep back in, filling the air with the tension of unspooled thread, and suddenly everything escalates. Dorian steps forward, his protective demeanor encompassing the space around me, shielding me from the growing darkness. "This isn't just about her," he says, his voice simmering with fury. "You need to walk away while you still can." But my feet feel rooted, my voice stammered with resolve, a fierceness rising within me that refuses to be silenced. "No, Dorian." I turn to face him, yearning for clarity amidst the storm. "I want the truth. I won't allow my brother's memory to be used as a weapon against me." His eyes flash with something admiration, perhaps. But it also carries an inescapable unwillingness to let me charge into danger. "You don't know what you're asking for. There are forces that will punish anyone who threatens their secrets. Isn't that what I deserve? To know who I am fighting? What my brother was part of?" All eyes are upon me, and I feel the weight of their scrutiny, but also a pulse of unexpected strength surging through me. Only a heartbeat ago, I was lost in a morass of grief, but in this moment, I see the undeniable truth rise against the shadows, shimmering like a light in a darkened sea. I'll uncover the truth for my brother, even if it costs me everything. The decision makes my heart race wildly, and there's no turning back. That it ignites something within Dorian. Maybe it's hope? Perhaps it's the essence of someone finally ready to stand her ground. For once, I'm not seeking permission to stand tall, I'm just standing. "Then we need to move, and fast." He nods toward Avery. "We'll have to find a way to protect her and stop the clock on this chaos." Marcus grits his teeth, rage mingling with something I can't quite decipher. "You think I'll let you two just walk away? You're both entangled in this mess, and there's no escaping the consequences now." I grit my teeth, resolve steadying my quaking heart. "Then know this, I won't be silenced." At once, a shattering sound erupts from the kitchen window, the aftermath of a looming storm crashing down, declaring war against us. Time freezes, and instinct kicks in. "Run!" Avery yells, eyes wide and urgently scanning for an escape. The door slams open, and Dorian leads the way while I cling to Avery's hand, racing past Marcus's laughter, a dark prophecy that chill my very soul. That we rush through the alley, flashes of sound trailing behind us. My heart pounds louder than the chaos unfolding, but fear begins to funnel itself into purpose. I will not be a mere spectator, I will fight to carve out my own existence from the wreckage of the past. As we slip deeper into the labyrinthine web of corridors, the world around us shimmers with an eerie energy, filling the air with vulnerability and urgency. My breath comes fast, but there's a new sensation emerging within, courage bolstered by my brother's cherished laughter flickering in my mind. With every turn, memories of him flood back to me, grounding me. I had lost him, but in seeking the truth, I could protect his legacy. And then, I remember my brother's true strength wasn't just in unraveling secrets, it was in the bonds we forged, the connections that could dismantle the darkness. "We need to get to a safe house," Dorian urges, mapping our escape as voices grow louder behind us. "It's a temporary refuge, but we'll regroup and make a plan." As we weave through the back streets, I realize I no longer feel burdened by grief alone. I carry with me a fire ignited by the unanswered questions that could change my reality, the pursuit of something much greater than shadows and secrets. Dorian must sense the shift, his gaze flickering between Avery and me in acknowledgement that perhaps this was the transformation my brother always dreamed for me. A legacy crafted in courage, not despair. Finally, we skid to a halt before a weathered door, my heart hammering, mingling with the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "In here," Dorian whispers urgently, pushing the door open. Behind it lies a sanctuary, a modest room enveloped in warm hues, illuminated by candles and filled with the comforting aroma of tea and the promise of safety. "Who's here?" A gentle voice calls, revealing an older woman with kind eyes, her presence radiating warmth amidst the uncertainty. "Miranda's here, her brother's legacy isn't finished, and our game has just begun," Dorian states, his tone softer in the company of warmth. With one shared glance at Avery and the supportive presence of Dorian behind me, the weight of my decision finds a voice that screams of defiance and strength. "Let me tell you my brother's story," I say, my heart steadying in this newfound paradigm. And so, as the shadows retreat and light breaks through the strangled remains of my past, I must embrace the truth that awaits. There is power in seeking what lies beneath the chaos, because in doing so, I might finally unearth the connection that transcends loss, sparking a legacy enriched with love that allows me to forge ahead, not alone, but with the unwavering remembrance of my brother shining brightly behind me. Unfinished, I whisper, a promise to myself, and in that moment, I realize saying goodbye might not mean loss at all, but rather the beautiful embrace of a new beginning.